Chapter 13. Blizzard. The ibex had gone. The way ahead was clear. By the crevasse where she had fallen, Maroo made an offering to the mountain spirits. She tossed into the deep hole some of the precious shells she had found on the beach. The loose snow at the edges crumbled and fell in upon them. For the rest of that day, they saw and heard nothing, only the tiring whiteness of the landscape and the rasping of their own breath. There were no more accidents, but by the time they reached the pass between the two peaks at sundown, they felt drained of all strength. Maroo had never been so tired before. The ache in her legs spread up through her entire body, and it was only willpower that kept her going. Even the bruises from her fall were nothing compared with the overwhelming tiredness. When at last they stopped and squatted down to rest, she felt that she would never be able to get up again. The place where they now found themselves was desolate. The deadly cold breath of the glacier blew upon them, and Maroo felt the bones of her face beginning to ache and her jaw stiffening. How would they keep warm tonight? She looked around. They were on an uneven plateau scattered with rocky ridges. Flat, snow-covered tracks wound between the rocks. They looked like paths, but unlike any paths made by people, they meandered aimlessly, linking and doubling back on each other. Nothing moved in all that white emptiness, not even a bird. The way they must take led up toward a ridge on the horizon. What it looked like the top of the mountain had only been the first peak. They saw now that they had a long, slow climb ahead of them across rough country toward the high place that Old Mother had called the Pass of the Spirits. A wet touch came on her cheek, another on her mouth. Snow was falling again. She looked around for a sheltered place. There were no caves near, and the sky hung heavy with snow. "We must make a snow house," she said. A small moan came from Otak. Maroo saw that he was dropping with weariness. "We must," she insisted. "Can't we camp under that ledge?" he begged, pointing it out, but knowing the answer must be no. Maroo did not bother to answer him. Instead, she began shaping the firm snow into rough blocks with her gloved hands. When they were of more or less equal size, she used her stone knife to cut them into perfect blocks. Otak began laying the foundation ring, but he was tired and worked slowly. Maroo had to stop and help him make a firm seal as he laid on the first block of the second layer. She laid a few more blocks, tilting them inward at just the right angle. Then she went back to shaping and cutting. "You must help," she chided Otak warily, but Otak was not listening. He had seen something in the snow just beyond the building. He signaled to her to come and look. Revel was beside him, sniffing at the ground. There was no doubt about what he had saw. The broad print with those rounded pads and deep curving claws. A cave lion. She squatted and sniffed at the spoor. It was fresh, making her pull back instinctively in fear. Revel whined and his fur lifted. The lion had passed by less than half a day ago, perhaps while they were climbing up to the pass. The depth of the print told them something of the size of the animal. Otak made with his hands the sign that meant, "A big one." Maroo nodded. The snow began to fall more heavily, and the lion's prints were obliterated before their eyes. They went back to their building, and in spite of tiredness, finished the snow house quickly. While Otak smoothed off the entrance tunnel, Maroo took kindling from her pack and scraped out the embers of the fire from the horn. The embers were hot, but there was no red glow. She blew gently, as she had seen Old Mother do. The red came, but died away before she could ignite the dry wood. She blew again, feeding the sleeping fire with slivers of wood to tempt it into life. In her pack, she carried a boldril for making new fire, but this was Old Mother's fire, and she wanted to have Old Mother's fire in her own hearth. At last, she was rewarded. The wood smoked, then sprang to life. Soon the fire was roaring red, and the snow house grew hot. The children were too tired even to eat. They curled up in their furs with Revo between them, and they slept till far into the morning. When Maroo woke and crawled down the entrance tunnel, she knew from the silence that it was still snowing. Outside, snowflakes were flying thickly past. A deep drift was piled up against the side of the snow house, and the sky was heavy. There could be no possibility of leaving the snow house until it stopped. Rocks and crevasses would be hidden, and they would never find their way safely across the top of the mountain, nor could they hope to hunt. Though the meat was running low, and so was time, Maroo counted on her fingers. The thumb and the forefinger brought them to this shelter, and today would be the second finger. She crawled back inside to tell Otak. For the rest of that day they sat in the snow house and waited for the blizzard to pass. Otak was restless and longed to go out and hunt. Maroo became increasingly stiff. Every limb ached, and she realized that this was the result of her fall on the glacier. She found that she was covered with blackening bruises. Otak took from his pack the horns of the ibex a rag had killed and wedged them into the snow behind his sleeping space. Maroo said, "Why did you bring those? They must be heavy." "I wanted to," said Otak. "I shall always take them, everywhere I go." His lower lip wobbled, and Maroo said no more. Strange noises penetrated the snow house. Wind spirits moaned in the entrance tunnel and the smoke hole. They both remembered Old Mother's words about the mountain, how it was dangerous, and they should cross it quickly, before it feels that you are there. And now they were trapped here by the blizzard, and surely the mountain spirits must know it. Already they had tried to drag Maroo under the ice. As the day went on, the children became more and more uneasy. Once, when Otak went out to urinate, he came back wide-eyed with fright and reported seeing a spirit, a dark, slinking shape at the top of the ridge above the snow house. When Maroo tried to reassure him, a terrifying scream came from nearby, followed by scuffling and snarling and a cat-like growl. She and Otak clung to each other. Revo barked and barked. Maroo remembered the cat spirit that had haunted the echoing rock and the disastrous ibex hunt that had happened there. But as they crouched together, quivering with fear, she also remembered Old Mother's advice about stories. "Don't cry," she said to Otak. "I'll tell you a story." And she gave them each, including Revo, a portion of the deer meat, and began the story of the hare who challenged the sun to a race. A day later, Maroo's fund of songs and stories was running low, and the meat was almost gone. Revo growled and fretted in the passage, and Otak was whimpering with hunger and boredom. He wanted to go out and hunt. "It's too dangerous," Maroo said patiently. "Yet again, you might fall, as I did, or get lost. I could get a lemming, or a hare. I'm not afraid of the snow." Maroo laughed contemptuously. "Yesterday you were frightened of the wind in the tunnel. So were you. If I was, I didn't show it. I didn't start crying and asking for Mother." Otak's eyes were red. "I hate you," he said. Maroo was sorry, but did not know how to say so. The blizzard was dying down, and she hoped that by tomorrow they could leave the snow house. She thought of that other snow house, 2 days' walk away on the great plain. If only they were all together. She imagined them sitting around her own hearth, Vorka, Tikek, the baby, and little Nime, Old Mother, and a rag. She thought longingly of her father, missing his cheerful confidence. If a rag were here, they would not have quarreled. He would have made them laugh. Tears came quickly, and she turned aside so that Otak would not see. He might start crying again, too, and then their pretense of courage would be over. She crawled down the entrance tunnel, partly to hide her tears and partly to check the weather. The sky was darkening, the wind had dropped, and only a few flakes of snow still fell. She came back, cheered. "It stopped," she said. "Let's go to sleep now and be ready to move out at dawn." She fetched clean snow from outside, put it in the bone bowl, and melted it with hot stones from the fire. sprinkling it with a handful of herbs from the pouch hanging from a belt. She handed the drink to Otak, feeling that she had done what Old Mother would have done. When they had drunk, they curled up together and tried to sleep. But Maroo lay awake for a long time, thinking of the way ahead and the pass of the spirits.